The panel, everybody on the panel is here, except I have to apologize that you will see that your panel includes Sidiso Matona from Public Enterprises. He has apologized, he's not able to make it. And the mayor, His Lordship the Mayor, B.D. Dlamini, it's held up, he can't make it. So we have, I'm going to just introduce very quickly in the order that we will be, not in the order that we will be, but on my far right we have Ayanda. Ayanda Kanane is the municipality expert. He's one of the few people who took an interest in this, but not take an interest as in making comments on radio. He went out and did a comparative kind of analysis to assess municipalities that work, municipalities that don't work. So he has distilled a very fine list of the features of a successful municipality and the hindrances. So he's going to share with us. I'm going to ask him to go first once I've introduced everybody on the panel. Because although we know what we want, it always helps to have somebody take an objective view. He is involved himself with the city of Johannesburg, so it's not as if he's just a theoretician, because there's always that risk that when you do theory a lot and people can criticize you and say you don't know the practical on-the-ground conditions. If you're on the ground, the theoreticians will say you are not. There's that positivist thinking that you are either a theoretician or a practitioner, or you are a practical person or an idealistic person. There's always a balance. So Ayanda is going to give us that balance. And then next to him we have Mr. Vusumsi. We put him on the spot earlier on. It wasn't about what he's going to be talking here. Auditor General's office, I actually saw an article talking about the Auditor General playing a violin, and I don't know if it was about the violin, people not singing in tune, or they were not hearing the music, because every year the Auditor General comes up with a lot of recommendations, a snapshot of the country, which departments are getting clean audits. There's a vision that by, is it 2014? All departments should be having, all municipalities should be having a clean audit. I'm an optimistic South African, you know. I survived the 80s. I voted in all elections. I'm not immigrating. I'm not going anywhere. But 2014, if I'm not mistaken, is very close by. I mean, children who watch Christmas are already counting months towards 2014. So when children start counting the number of sleeps towards a year, and you are hoping to get a clean audit, with all my optimism, I've got to take off that hat and say, it's not going to happen. And the Auditor General's office will tell us. Because, and it's not a very fancy position to be in if you're the Auditor General, because people think, well, but you are there. Why are things not working? Not realizing you have a role of oversight, recommendation, advice, and your reports have to be looked at by a whole lot of different people. And often people don't want to talk about the issues you raise. So we will find out from that oversight, advisory, national perspective. And we'll also have Skulk Human from the Accountant General's office, the Treasury. Why do you keep giving people money who are not getting their house in order? Want to be a fly on the wall on some of these audit committee meetings. This simulation here, we send a video to all of them and say, that's how you do it. Again, running a country is not a very easy thing. It's very easy for me to criticize standing here, running my own household without even a dog and a cat, you know. When you have over 200 municipalities, many departments, many director generals, then Polokwane happens, and then Mangaung happens, and things are moving very quickly. It's a high, heavy industrial machine that you're running there. And your fingers get cut, literally. All right, your head gets knocked all the time because there are many conflicting interests. Then we look at you and say, yeah, but this government. You are efficient when you collect revenue, but you're not accounting for it. So we are getting there. So we want to hear that perspective. Mr. Human, after all, you're only human. You can only give us a... That's right. You are government, I know, but, ministry within a government, but you're still human, right? So we will leave it there. And then we have... I don't know why I'm mixing my... From the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. Please don't change names of things and change the way they work. All right. Joey Krishman, she's going to tell us about, because I've been interested in these municipalities, not which one is, where the clean audit is, because that's not really... Again, I'm a teacher. I know how to work with average people. That's how we are trained. Average child sits down, does his homework. They listen, they carry out instructions. Not the gifted one who's going to give me a hard time and run ahead of everybody else, or the one who's not interested, who's just not going to learn anything. We want the average, because they are the majority. That's where the bulk of people sit. So... But even when you look at the bulk of the municipalities in KZN, are we allowed to call it KZN? Okay.
You may.
This protocol is big in that province. Even if you look at the whole country, the green municipalities, by green meaning average above average, they are in KZN. And I used to do a heat map about 2-3 years ago of municipalities and look at. I always found that it looks like the better municipalities are in KZN. Initially I thought it's the green hills and everything. They influence the color coding. And I realized, no, there are many municipalities in that province that are very green, as in they are getting close. And then we have someone whose profile is not in the book because she was called in last minute. But I like her story. Councillor Nelani Naidu, an MBA, chairman of the MPAC, Municipal Public Accounts Committee. We media people love scope, Gives us scoops. We love scope. Temba Kodie, come here and let's talk. Somebody's going to slip up. Hey, something's going to get missed. But at the municipal level, in a place called Utungulu. Utungulu municipality is in the north. Empangeni, Richards Bay, there. Those who went to the University of Zululand. I don't know if you did go to the University of Zululand. It no longer exists. It's called something else now. Utungulu municipality, 10 years, more than 10 years. Unqualified audit opinion. That's not an accident. That's not a fluke. It's not a sucker punch you land and then somebody falls and you. This is Floyd Mayweather stuff. Unbeaten record. 10 years. Even this time they missed, I think, by one performance issue. So when you miss by one performance issue and you've had 10 years of unqualified audit opinions, we can say it was really a slip-up. Somebody. But if you slip up on the same issue 10 years in a row, then no, you can't be. So it's a very good example of how you can get it right at municipal level. And from the viewpoint of the Public Accounts Committee, what it is that they are doing in the area where we are told we don't have skills. And then last but not least, my one here is Nosipho Mkhunu from, the reason she's here is because she sits on 3 audit committees of those children we don't like in class, the ones who are going to make you give extra lessons, and require extra attention, and then their parents will come and say, but my child is normally brighter than he came to you much brighter, and why is he failing now? So she's on audit committees of 3, and the reason we put her here also is it's very easy to let those who are shining stand up and dominate everybody, or just beat down people for non-performance. But when there's an intervention, that's likely to sort things out. We want to know exactly where you start. So I'm sure you will agree with me, we have a high-powered panel. It's not a contrived group of people who are going to give us sunshine stories, everything is hunky-dory. At the same time, it's not going to be government bashing, municipality bashing festival, where, you just pick a municipality, hey, take pot shots, I don't like that one. Hey, you're out of here. I don't like that one. But to start us off, I'm going to ask Ayanda to take about 3 to 5 minutes and share with us. I promise you it's 2 slides and he's only going to use 1 for now. Take us through the hindrances as he has identified them. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Ayanda. And he's going to step down there to be amongst the people.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Some of the comments I agree with, some of them I can challenge from my program director, but we'll leave that between the two of us. Colleagues, I have a dream, and my dream is that local government gets a clean audit. That's a simple dream. And while I'm dreaming, I have an aspiration that one day I and yourselves will become the Mervyn Kings of local government. And if you don't have that aspiration, you can leave it to me, because I want to see it through. And the reason for that is that we've borrowed a lot, and some of what we borrow doesn't really work in local government. And you'll see with some of the hindrances I'm going to share with you that some of the things you just need to shake people up and they'll get a clean audit. But because we're borrowing so much, they get lost in what we are borrowing and they miss the basic aspects of what they must do. I happen to have sat in a number of committees, and I've got some of my colleagues here who internal audit and one of the board members who will share with you that we wore a veil when we got into an audit committee. We spoke what we felt should be said, not what the politicians think should be said, not what management tells us to say. And we said some of the things that they don't like, even when they're getting clean audit. Joshko is one of them. But we told them, up your game. Let me take you back to a little bit of auditing. It wasn't auditing 101 for us. We caught it at the 3rd level of our varsity studies. And most of you will be familiar with this view. There's something called a business risk and an audit risk, and within the business risk exists what we call the audit risk. But I'll put it in the context of what has interested me about things that I pick up within the space of audit committees, especially in municipalities, especially in a metro. I'm not sure if you can see very well, but one of the first points is that municipalities fail to plan, or their plans are very static. They plan now and they'll see that document next year. Malicious compliance, one of the very, very big issues. I mean, we had a call this other time where a supplier said, I've been paid for your CapEx, but I haven't done any work. But when we look at the CapEx report, the percentage has gone up, but no service delivery on the ground. Poor skills and expertise in key positions. Take our teacher here, put them in finance, let him be the CFO, all systems go. That's what we see. Service delivery plans not working. They are template driven. People complete for the sake of meeting a deadline, which they don't meet anyway. And then they only see that document again when it's required. Ill discipline and no consequence, something that has been discussed quite aggressively. And I'm sure audit committees wonder, what power do I have against this chief risk officer? I can only make noise meeting after another, but the guy is still there. unprepared audit committee and board members. And these colleagues you are guilty of. You've got terms of reference that say 7 business days or 5 days, but you do accept documents even when handed in the middle of a meeting. Even when I can tell you, if you try and review City of Johannesburg consolidated financial statements overnight, and you do it properly, you will miss that meeting because you will not finish. But members come and they sit there, they look like they are prepared, but half the questions have got nothing to do with this set. They even miss one of the cash flows that is not sitting in the document. Solvency and liquidity issues. There was a document by Treasury telling us about financially distressed municipalities. Poor collection. And our teachers don't know what to do with it. They can only just report it. The ratios are not well understood. Ratios are used left, right, and center, but no one knows how to interpret these ratios. Undeclared conflict of interest. Huge. Even today, we still rely on the AG to pick it up because we don't have PERSAL numbers or all sorts of things relating to this. But that hinders our clean audit. Political will. I asked a question to my mayoral committee. I said, can any one of you raise your hand if you don't want a clean audit? All of them raised their hands. Who wants a qualification? No one says anything. But you go back to the management, they tell you politicians are the ones interfering in this whole process. So that dichotomy is still being discussed for years, and it will be discussed for years to come. But I tell you, the elections are coming. All of them are going to use their clean audit as a political tool to get a vote. Because it means I'm running my administration properly. Use of consultants, and I've got there blindly. One CFO comes and says, we've got a fixed asset policy. One, they didn't draft it. Two, they don't know the contents, but they have it. And they get to audit committee meetings, they bring their troops of financial accountants and managers, and they only introduce them, and that's the end of the story. They are the ones shielding questions. Industrial action excuse. We get a lot of this. We couldn't give that report because there was a strike. And as soon as you do that, it's a tick against you in the auditor's books because you are not following up on your internal controls. They are not effective throughout the period of reliance. Reputation management, big issue. Big issue. In the media is running government in terms of this. They can make you, they can break you. But we don't know how to give them the good news that one of the things that Gauteng has done well is put the Gautrain. They've done it well, but they don't brag about it. Only when questioned, they brag about it. But the cables are cut, you hear it in the radio. Things go wrong. I mean, we now know that in the Gautrain, you can't even chew a gum. But how are those controls working in Gautrain, but you can't use them in other areas? Lastly, this is related to IT. IT hinders a lot of what we're trying to do. One, we don't have skill to manage it. Business continuity gets affected. But before we get to that level, if it has not been affected, it's not a problem. If the auditors has not raised anything about an IT, no issues. Last time we were in the city of Johannesburg, there was a hacking that was spoken about, that somebody hacked into the accounts of the residents of Johannesburg. And a few months ago, we were assured that we are unhackable. So somebody is putting documents together, submitting them for approval, packing them. But we're not paying attention to business continuity. Lastly and quickly, in terms of the audit risk, failing controls, undue reliance on the AG. We see this a lot. 31st of August, submission of financial statements. Some of the things that we see when we review these statements, it's shocking. But we just rely on the AG to tell us what they found that is wrong, let us adjust it, and we'll live with the management letter comment that significant adjustments had to be made. Local government does not plan for audits. It's an event. It's not a process. When it happens, we run helter-skelter to try and make it happen. When they leave, thank you very much for going. We'll see you next year. Study leave during the audit. Approvals are happening. And then we get the CFOs telling us that is the reason why things didn't happen. So-and-so is on study leave. And if you go back to the leave policy, it says a month in advance of that exam, but it was approved within that month. So management compromising their own policies. Internal audit function misused. Half the time, internal audit is being used for investigations. Some of them are investigating their own municipal manager. So for a while, they are tied up in all these political debates, and their audit plan is compromised. Performance, half the time we don't tell the truth. We convert performance to percentages, and those percentages are not measurable, and we cannot justify them, so we lie. I believe 80% of the road has been tarred. How? And then we fail the audit. So those are some of the hindrances which, in my view, affect us. And we will open up the discussion in the round table, and members will share their views. And then I will come back and close with what we need to do to achieve a clean audit in this short term. 2014 is upon us, and we need to see how we have reduced those qualifications to unqualified audit opinions. Thank you.
All right, a round of applause for Ayanda. I'll settle the score with him for picking on teachers. You can't do that. Hey, you can't do that. I'm going to step down here so I can see you. You're the kind of child we wanted to watch in class. We teach you and you diss us, eh? Okay. So let me stand here so I can